It's feel comfortable.
Yeah, it is. It's a good, comfortable chair.
Very comfortable.
Welcome to the IGA Baker Company,
Okay.
the greatest free trading company in the West. All of our goods come by bull train from Fort Benton, Montana, down south,
Wow.
up here to our Fort McLeod store, built in 1874 by the company. The quickest trip between Fort Benton and Fort McLeod was made in 10 days. However, more often they're around a month. And at this time of year, in the spring rains, they can be 2 to 3 months long, because our goods are all shipped by bull train. So 8 or 9 teams of oxen. When the weather is good, they travel very quickly. They can cover about 2.5 miles in an hour, pulling all of that weight. But when things are muddy and the wagons get stuck and the oxen get stuck, nobody's very happy about it. This building was built in the 90s here at Heritage Park, and it was built as a replica of the original 1874 Fort McLeod store, based on photographs that we have of the exterior and some interior photographs, as well as descriptions by the traders.
Okay, I'm assuming those boxes up there, the wood cases, are where you pack those items that people ordered.
Yes, exactly. Items that people ordered, as well as additional stock of things like canned strawberries and pickles.
Wow. I can see tomato ketchup.
Yes, all sorts of delicacies. Mixed pickles.
Wow.
Keen's dry mustard, an
Lovely.
assortment of baking powders, and of course the essential Stanton's trademark pain relief for 25 cents for all internal and external maladies, purely vegetable. It will instantly stop pain and effectually cure all malarious, nervous, and muscular complaints.
What? This?
Yes,
Everything.
everything. It's mostly opium.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Wow. Interesting.
Is called the Great House, and the Great House was where the fur traders had their accommodation. So this is where they ate, where they slept, where they had parties, and it was really a communal space. They ate together communally, the food was cooked communally, but it was also a segregated space. So on this side, we'd find the laborers.
Okay.
These are the guys who were in the fur trade for, they paddle the canoes, they cut the wood, the firewood for the fires. Over on the other side of this wall, that's where the officers of the company would be. So those are the people that are higher ranking in the company. And it wasn't just a status distinction, it was also an ethnic distinction. Over on that side, most of the people who are higher in the company are people of English, Irish, or Scottish extraction.
Okay.
On this side, these are more likely to be Métis and French-Canadian voyageurs, because the Hudson's Bay Company was a Victorian company. And in the winter, there'd be a lot of activities going on in here, because that's kind of a downtime. So you'd see voyageurs who are here across the winter. They'll be working on making snowshoes, they'll be repairing harness, they'll be packing furs, and they'll be doing stuff like I'm doing, which is working on wood. This is a carpenter's bench, and it's called a shaving horse. And the reason why it's called that is because I sit on it the way I'd sit on a horse, and I can do shaving operations, so I can peel away the wood. Now this was a real common type of bench that a chair maker or someone like that would use. And if you look at it, you see that I've got it locked in position, and I can shave, and then I can unlock it by taking my feet off. I can twist it really fast, And so I can keep it true and round. And yet, the harder I pull, the harder I push with my feet, so it can't come out.
Over, yeah.
Right? So it's a really solid grip, and yet it unlocks really quickly. And so I can able to keep it round. And so this was a really important tool for chair makers, for spar makers, for the guys that made the like even for masts for ships and things like that.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. We're still here at the Heritage Park, and it's getting better and better and bigger. I'm here with Chief Trader Evan, that is going to tell us about this space, this beautiful building.
Yes, indeed. So this here is our trading post, and we represent a Hudson's Bay Company trading post from 1860 to 1870. So the Hudson's Bay Company was established in 1670 by this gentleman right over here, King Charles II. And his son, Prince Rupert here, was the first governor of the company. Now they were granted access to all the lands in Western Canada known as Rupert's Land, and that was anywhere where the rivers drained into the Hudson's Bay. So that extended all the way up to the Rocky Mountains and down into the United States even. So they were the world's biggest landowners.
Wow.
And they traded furs. So First Nations trappers, they'd spend their years out in the wilderness gathering animals such as bears with bear traps, beavers with the smaller traps, and many other furs. And when it came time for the trapping season to end, that would be in early spring, they would bring us all their furs, and we would give them credit to buy things in the store with.
Okay.
So anything from traps, pots and pans, foods, and particularly jewelry and other items that weren't accessible here.
So that means it's a kind of trade by barter.
Exactly.
So you bring your fur, and then you get a credit note to buy any equipment you need.
Yes. Wow. And one of the forms of currency that we would use, since the beaver was an especially popular fur to be traded, we measured the value of everything else that we sold against the value of one made beaver.
Okay.
And the made beaver was a beaver that was prepared just like this.
This is very fluffy. Nice.
And the reason there was such a demand for these furs, especially the beaver, is because they would be made into a felt that was waterproof.
Okay.
And was used in top hats and clothing in England.
Wow. That is amazing. Wow. So what kind of animals are these?
These are muskrats. So they're very closely related to the beavers. And they can be found even down here in Calgary if you know where to look. So,
and this?
These are the pine martens, and these are minks. They're both relatives of the weasel.
Okay.
Very aggressive animals, so you don't want to mess with them if you see them in the wild.
And they're looking very nice.
Oh, yes. And the ladies in Europe would usually wear these as a coat or as a scarf.
Oh, around the necks. Okay.
Well, it would take up to 72 just to make one coat, so it was a very expensive item.
72 of these to make one coat.
Oh, yes. Look up here. This is a very small replica of a birch bark canoe. So back in the fur trade era, there were no railroads out in Western Canada, and trails were very few and far between. So it wasn't practical to use horses or mules.
So canoe is the best way of transportation around, to move around.
Yes. And those would usually be about as long as this building, so 30 to 50 feet long. They could carry 15 men and thousands of pounds of supplies. This here is one of our smallest traps. It's a beaver trap, and I'm going to set it off for you.
All right, so let's...
Now a trapper has to be very careful to keep their fingers out of here, because an injury back in those days usually meant you would get an infection, and an infection meant almost certain death if you didn't treat it in time. So it was a risky career. Your beaver will smell your trap because you'll leave some bait in here, and if he falls for it, he'll get a leg caught.
Yeah.
And then you have your beaver, you can go through the whole process and trade it.
That's cool. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So, what do you have here?
This is Our Lady of Peace mission. So this is a replica of the mission as it looked in about 1877 or so.
Okay, so can we go inside and see?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. I'm here with Solomon. He's going to be telling us about Our Lady of Peace mission, or as it originally called, Notre Dame
de la Paix.
de la Paix. Notre
Yes,
Dame de la
a lot
Paix.
of our early missionaries here, they were French speaking because they were from a French order of priests. So a lot of them were from France or from French Canada. But actually our founding missionary here, he was Irish, from Northern Ireland. So this here, it's a replica of the 1877 mission. So this was actually the third building that Our Lady of Peace occupied. The first one, built in 1873, was built by a Métis man by the name of Alexis Cardinal, and he built the whole thing himself. So that's a pretty big feat to build a cabin by yourself. It was quite small though, so according to Father Doucette's diary, it's 8 feet square. So really, really small. This is sort of set up so that all of these benches are movable, so that as they would have done, the missionaries could rearrange the space however they needed it to be. So right now we've set it up as sort of a teaching situation for teacher and students here,
Okay.
And his sort of living quarters back here.
For the missionaries.
Yes, but at this point in time, our missionaries they weren't actually around very often. Most of their time was spent with the Blackfoot people, and because they travel around the prairies in their normal cycles, so did our missionaries. So they could actually be gone for up to a year and a half from this place.
So what happened? It's closed?
It
If
would-
it's empty?
It would be generally their Métis guides and their lay helpers helping them keep this place upkeep and do the teaching as well.
Okay, while they're gone on missionary, around?
Yeah, while they were going around. Because at this point in time, the missionaries, while there was that religious work, and yes, they were trying to bring Christianity to First Nations of this area, a lot of their work actually in this part of Canada was spent being that connection between the First Nations and the Canadian government, and from with the First Nations to other European Caucasian settlers that were starting to arrive from the US and from Eastern Canada. So yes, there was that religious work, but a lot of their time actually was spent doing civil duties.
Yeah.
They were very instrumental in putting together Treaty 7 and helping the Blackfoot negotiate this changing world that
That's
they
cool.
were that was happening around them.
Beautiful building.
Yes, this is a replica, so we've taken a few liberties just to make sure that it's up to today's code. So we've put in a real floor as opposed to a dirt floor. And these large timbers here, such as you'll find in Kananaskis, it wouldn't have been like this. You would have lodgepole pine like you see in the ceiling here.
Yeah.
That's easier to cut down and carry from the mountains. It grows more on the eastern side of the mountains as well. It's our provincial tree as well. So, but otherwise, it's fairly similar to what they would have had.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.